everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Rookies podcast. On today's episode, it's all about keeping the conversation going with our topic on racial and social injustice and the resulting effects or impact that this has had on sport in 2020. Today's guests include Jordan Fung, Senior Account Executive for Cosmos, Jasween Kaur, who, if you remember from last week's episode on women in sport, is our sponsorship and community relations executive. Joining them are Vishwa Mistry, one of our account executives for the fall semester internship program here at Cosmos, and Tony Fan, one of the ticket sales executives for the Beasts fall semester. In addition to these guests, we also have a Cosmos alumni with us today, Mr. Jordan Urquhart, who started out as an intern with the company in January of 2019 and went on to be one of our senior account executives. He has since moved on to new opportunities, but we are excited to have him back for today's episode. So welcome everyone to the podcast. Thank you for being here. Let's get right into today's topic. So I wanted to start off by taking you guys back to early April, kind of May time when the pandemic first hit, and you were hearing all of these things about, the social injustice that was going on in the States with the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and then just the resulting protests that came out of that. So how did you guys feel when you heard the news of these deaths in the States? And what was your reaction to these protests that came out of it?
To me, it was like being at home and constantly like being on our phones now more than usual, because we're either working or just laying on the couch, or people just had that free time to be out there and see it. I feel like that's what really helped grab onto it, because these senseless killings and unfair treatment has been going on for years, right? And I when I first saw it, I always tend to look at it and say, like, there's no way I should know George Floyd's name. There's no way I should know Breonna Taylor's name. There's no way I should know Trayvon Martin or Eric Garner, because these people live in places I've been to some of these places, but I've never been there. And I live in Brampton. I live far, far away. There's no reason. They're not famous. They're not, you know what I'm saying? They're just normal people like myself. And unfortunately, these things happen. And with the power of social media and I don't want to say the luck of COVID, but the fact that we were in COVID and being at home, it spreads like wildfire. And all these protests and, reposts on your story, that kind of stuff, it really pushed it, which helped, I think, a lot of people see what's going on and how people are being unfairly treated. And it's not, I don't want to say it's just racism against Blacks, because I think it happens in every race, but it's something that, it happens a lot in that community and people of color. So it's something that we definitely need to I don't know how they're going to do it. I don't have the power to, but I can use my voice and say, like, this is wrong. And as other people kind of gain knowledge on it and see more about it, we can kind of change the next generation and their perception on how we treat one another.
I think a really interesting thing that happened just to go along with Jordan's point about how, more people learned about it, is that I had conversations about this with people that I don't think I'd ever have conversations about this with. It almost, in a way, opened some people's eyes to what's really going on, and then you could have that conversation with them, and then they'd be like, "Oh, is this something that like have you ever dealt with this, Jordan?" And I'd be like, "Well, I mean, not to that extent, obviously, but I've had moments of things like this," and it's just like I wouldn't have that conversation with that person normally, but almost this, happening and the way it spread and got into everyone's feeds, people started talking about it a lot more than I think they would have for instances in the past. So
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I think too, with just the fact that all of these protests were happening and there was a global pandemic going on at the same time, that didn't stop people from like coming together and like showing their support and being there for their community. And it wasn't just something that was happening in the States and in Canada. These protests happened worldwide in countries like the UK, Germany, France, like Australia. These were countries that at the beginning of the pandemic were hit really hard with infections, but that didn't stop people from wanting to show their support. And so I think that in itself was just so powerful to see that, you know, these deaths that happened in the States affected everyone around the world. Just from your guys' perspectives, how did you guys see these protests affect and kind of translate into the sport world?
Yeah, I can kind of chime in on that one because when we think about like the Black Lives Matter movement and how it ties in with the sports, I think it's acts as more like a huge social platform and sharing the message out. Like we've seen boycott games in NBA regarding this issue, and there are different leaders like LeBron James like stepping out and becoming more of a vocal leader and voicing this movement. And like I think this move like it's that people might not have the privilege to speak up before and to see what like George Floyd had to go through. Like it was really an uncomfortable experience, but like they might not have spoken about it 10 to 20 years ago. And now that more and more cases are happening, like there's got to be a change in like racial injustice. And you see it in all the basketball ads as well, like in different sports ads. Everyone's just promoting racial injustice in sports and what it means to just cast their vote and being responsible to some of their social matters. And I think it's like really hard enough already for now for all of us, like even under a pandemic, like right now it's definitely a hard time already, but definitely just something to keep in mind too when we think about sports. We think about a connection just like through different nationalities. And I know it's something that's racial injustice is something that we can't put an end to easily, but yeah, it's something that we should work towards to just eliminate as many racial discriminations as we can.
I think like one point, like before all this happened, like Colin Kaepernick, you know, he was the first one to really take a stand on this because it does take a lot of courage to actually kneel against the anthem. And you see all these like the NBA league and the bubble, they all took the knee. And I think it was just a great way for them to create awareness of this matter. You know, you had like LeBron James' platform, More Than an Athlete. He was like pushing out content and create like the More Than a Vote organization. I think voting was a huge thing that these leagues spread. You had NBA arenas turning voting stations into NBA stations were using their arenas as voting stations because there weren't enough. So I think it was just great for the leagues to really step in and you know they're one of the most viewed sports in the world. So they really made a great way to create awareness on this matter.
Yeah, and I would jump in as well and say that I agree with you guys with it being a huge platform for them to have these views and say, you know, get out and vote and Black Lives Matter and education reform or whatever it was that was on the back of their jerseys. And you can go on with the amount of things that they've done, even donating. But I think it can't stop there. And what I mean by that is, yeah, we can go out. Well, Americans can go out, and racism is everywhere in the world. But just speaking on America, Americans can go out and vote, and they can change their president. But racism has been going on forever in that country, whether it was a Republican or a Democrat in office, right? So even Barack Obama, a black man, there was racism and police brutality taking place under his administration. So I feel like it's a good start. And it's a good place to, you know, get the word out. And as we change the younger generations of you know, a little white boy or a black boy watching LeBron James or watching, you know, Kevin, he didn't play, but Giannis, you know, wearing those messages on their jerseys, it says like, okay, I can grow up into the next generation and say, yes, this matters to me. This affects me because I saw this growing up, right? And I feel like before the older generation, they didn't have that. And a lot of people were afraid to, and all these other people were oppressed. So they couldn't really share how they felt. And because people didn't get to sympathize with that, that's where we are now. So I don't know if that made any sense, but what I'm saying is as the generations grow and they continue to see what's going on and how things need to change, we need to continue to back these organizations and ensure that they continuously do it until we have a full generation of people who understand that no matter your race, your skin tone, your religion, your gender, you are still a human and you should be treated with respect.
So I think, one thing that we've seen is, especially if we go back to look at Colin Kaepernick and when he knelt and what happened with him and how he was, in my opinion, other people might differ. They might say that, he wasn't good enough, but I think he was pretty much blackballed from the NFL and they didn't want anything to do with him because he'd bring negative attention to their teams. And just the NFL in general seemed to be this entity that just wanted to keep who they saw as their fans happy. And they felt like their fans didn't want to see that stuff in their game, so they would keep them happy. But now I feel like there's just been this sort of change almost, and like the predominant thought, or like it seems like the majority are fighting for justice, and now the NFL has changed a stance on it, and they're even pushing the agenda of equality and stuff like that. And so I think that like Jordan said, as the generations the older moves on and the younger come up, we're going to start to see just the world get better in that sense. Hopefully, that's what I think, just because of if you look at, like I said, if you look at the NFL and how they've sort of done a 180 on everything. So yeah. Anyways, what were you going to say, Jasween?
So I had an instance when I was a student. I read something regarding the Olympics that African Americans stood up for their equal rights. Even after winning 4 gold medals for their own country, they had to face the same discrimination. So to Jordan Fung's point, this has been happening since ages. But now when we are on the sports platform and the athletes are definitely raising their voices to the social cause, this has definitely given a light to all the people following them in the world. Like NBA is not related to just one country, it's followed by all the countries, like fans all over the world. So this has given light worldwide, and people have started understanding this cause in a better manner. Earlier it was just heard that this is happening, but now people are actually understanding the point that it's not the color which should matter, because even just not the African Americans or something, even we being South Asians, we have to face there are a lot of instances in cricket which happen due to color, like white players discriminating on the basis of color, or calling a player monkey or something just on the behalf of color. That has been happening since ages. So yeah, athletes supporting this cause has been, people had free time, and this has given a light on a very big cause.
I think you guys all brought up some really great points, and talking about how it's going global this time and how much of an impact that can making. And I really want to focus in on one of the points that Jordan made earlier, kind of talking about how it can't just stop here, and that kids are now being able to look at LeBron James on the court and see the message he's spreading. And going on to that topic, do you think that since these athletes have such big platforms, so many kids look up to them, so many individuals almost across the world look up to these athletes, that in a sense that these athletes have a responsibility to speak up on these issues? And if you do think that, why?
I wouldn't say that the athlete themselves has a responsibility to speak up on these issues because they're an athlete. I think they have a responsibility to speak on it because they're just a human. At the end of the day, they go through the same stresses and pressures that we go through, and probably even worse. Imagine being an athlete and you're playing whatever your respective sport and you're having a bad game and someone in the crowd is yelling at you and making some type of remark and whatever. When you're hearing that, that's way worse because you can't react to it. If you react to it, you'll be suspended by the league or you'll be in some type of trouble. And so I feel like these players that are they coming out and they're using their voices to kind of do it in a respectful manner, but in a manner that also gets across their message, is definitely needed. But not just because they're an athlete. I feel like this is something that anyone with a platform, whether it be an artist, singer, rapper, actor, actress, like anyone should really be speaking about it. And it's the way you go about it. Like, my platform is definitely not as big as LeBron James. I probably have like 800 followers on Instagram. So I'm a nobody to that guy. But if I can go on and speak to my 5 friends and say, hey, like, this is what's going on. This is how I feel. And then they come to me and they say, this is how they feel. And it makes them uncomfortable to talk about it. As long as we're kind of building and building and building away at it, you know, it makes that person feel a little better about it. Because there's people out there that are not racist, but they come from, say, it's a family or something that's going on. They don't feel like they're racist, but because they've been molded to follow like their parents or their grandparents or whatever it is, they don't realize that they're being racist, or they don't realize that what they're doing is oppressing another race or religion or whatever it may be. So I feel like, you know, just being able to have that conversation, that uncomfortable conversation with anyone around you, no matter how big your platform is definitely something that we need to start doing as a whole.
I think the question you need to ask yourself is, if you see something that's wrong, if you see something that's happening to someone that's wrong, even if you're out in public, would you do something about it? Would you say something about it? You know, the right thing to do probably is to do something about it, is to say something about it. And so that's, I think, the question you have to ask yourself, and that's the question that the athletes have to ask themselves. It's not necessarily a responsibility for them as an athlete because they have a platform, but like Jordan said, as a human being who, you know, hopefully has, you know, morals and stuff like that, if you see something wrong, then, you know, say something about it.
And kind of building upon that same thing where we've talked about, yes, it's something that everyone should be talking to that. And Jordan mentioned earlier how he shouldn't have to know the names of people like George Floyd because it shouldn't be happening in the first place. And you wish you didn't have to know about that. But because of it, it sparked that conversation. Can anyone here sort of speak to the importance of how this conversation is taking over more than just in the US where it's happening, but going globally, and sort of the importance that these conversations are happening in places like Canada and the UK, and just why it's so important that we keep that conversation going?
Yeah, I think it just goes back to the point that it's like happening everywhere. You take a look at like England, for example. You had the Premier League. When this first happened, they changed all their jerseys to Black Lives Matter at the back. Because it happens in football too, or soccer, football in England. Because these players, they go to another country and play, for example, they're getting like monkey chants at them, which is, it's just not acceptable. So, you know, that's happening globally. I think it's really important. You have leagues everywhere changing stuff to Black Lives Matter and just putting a fight against that, against systemic racism and everything, which is really important.
Yeah, and if I would jump in there and say to agree with you, because even this past weekend there was a match in the EPL, Arsenal versus Leeds, and Nicolas Pepe was given a red card. And after that, I'm an Arsenal fan, and there were fans who racially abused him for his actions during the game. And it's like, yeah, he messed up. Yeah, he probably let us down, and we probably didn't get to win the game because we were down a man. But at the same time, it's like why is that necessary? It's not necessary. But we need to realize that it's not just happening in the States. Although it feels like, you know, the States is always again and again there's some type of police brutality. It's happening everywhere. You look in Canada, Indigenous people are treated poorly. You know, like this is, some would say it's stolen land, right? And it's they haven't been given the they haven't been treated fairly for what we've taken from them. So it happens everywhere. And I feel like it's something that we as a world, just as humans, as I said before, like no matter where you're from, what language you speak, who you know, it's something that we just need to continuously bring up and speak about. And like this whole conversation we're having right now, this wouldn't be happening if you know, George Floyd didn't pass away or all this tragic stuff happened. So I guess it's good to take steps forward and continuously do that.
I think, you know, the importance of keeping the conversation going and keeping it top of mind is because, you know, one of the things I think is because, you know, if someone's racist, I don't think you're going to change their mind. Sometimes you might, but most of the time you're not. But I think the idea behind it is to make them feel uncomfortable. So they won't be racist out in public. They won't call a player who gets a red card names because the people around them won't accept that. Right? So I think that's the big part of just keeping the conversation going and making this like the like making it mainstream, making it the thing that, you can look at words that might have been said in the past that were acceptable, but have now become unacceptable, because if you say them around people, or you don't say them around people because it's uncomfortable. You wouldn't say that. People are going to call you out on it. So I think that's just the important thing of, you're not going to turn anyone into, a social justice warrior, I don't think, but at least you can make them feel uncomfortable so they won't be that way in public around you, and they won't cause things like what happened to George Floyd and stuff like that won't happen, hopefully.
Yeah, it's if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it at all. Like that's
Right.
learned that from as we're kids, right? So yeah.
For sure, yes. It's definitely something that's happening around the world and in every sport as well. So I wanted to get your opinions on which leagues you think did it right and did it wrong in terms of showing their support during, their play this season in 2020 in the bubble and things like that. Which leagues do you think did it right and which do you think did it wrong? Or could have done better, I guess I should say.
I think for me, by far, it's probably the NBA, because I think the bubble, it wasn't necessarily just to continue the games and for playoffs. The bubble was more about standing up against what was going on and creating that message and awareness for that. They had players change their jersey names to certain words that were related to this. They took the knee before every game, and even when I'm not sure which incident happened, but there was one after the George Floyd, and I think that's where the Bucks boycotted the game for that. So they were making sure that to keep playing and stuff, but the main thing for that bubble was to keep that message going, and I think that they did it well and perfect in my opinion.
Yeah, I was going to add on to that as well. I think NBA did a really good job as well during that. I think it made one of the main point is because it would happen right at the end of the season, like right in the end of the NBA season. So timing wise, I think they were able to use that time in the bubble for a lot of the social actions, and a lot of leaders came out and spoke in the advertisements as well. I think that was one of the better things that the NBA did as well.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, like the thing that I really liked about what the NBA did was they allowed the NBPA, the NBA National Basketball Players Association, to sit down together as players and put together a list of things that they wanted to see done, and they weren't going to play until they saw those changes being made. So they really gave the players a lot of power, and like I said, these guys, a collective group of people, I think that they definitely did their best in terms of what they could do and what they could work with, while also being mindful of, what big organizations like that, you have to be very careful with your political standpoint. And the NBA doesn't want to lose too much revenue. Right. And unfortunately, their numbers were down. But there's a lot of factors that go into that. So we wouldn't even know if it's because of all the Black Lives Matter and vote, get out and vote. Who knows? But yeah, for a start in their first year, especially with everything going on and being mindful of COVID as well, I think the NBA did a magnificent job.
I mean, I think, I think we'd all agree, yeah, the NBA. But I think what I'm interested in is to see the leagues where, predominantly the players are not Black, right? Because in NBA, it almost feels like they have to, because most of the players are Black. If they're not supporting their players, then the players won't play, right? But let's look at a league like like the NHL, for example. I don't really see much support for their Black players. Correct me if I'm wrong. I don't know if anyone else had seen things or anything that they're saying or anything that they were doing. It really seemed almost like they were just trying to stay out of it. So if I were to pick a league that could have done more or should have done more, I would say the NHL. And I would even maybe say the MLB too. Baseball, I'm not really sure what they did, I think, but Yeah, I don't know. I think I would have wished to see more out of those sports that, you know, most of the players aren't colored, and see them take a stand, because I think that even sends, in some ways, like um, a bigger message, but the message means more in a way where it's like you have all these people who are also fighting for the cause who might not be affected by it. So I don't know, that's my opinion.
So kind of building off of that as well, with what leagues did it right, what leagues did it wrong. And one that wasn't mentioned too much was actually the NFL. And earlier this week, the NFL came out saying that they're starting to implement a 7-point program or 7-step program that is aimed at sort of hiring minority coaches and executives. And it's a reward program where organizations that do this can get certain rewards, such as draft picks, and etc. What kind of are your thoughts on how this program is, pros and cons of it, and sort of what it means for the sport and how it's moving?
I think that it's the problem that we have at hand is so deeply embedded in where you come from, what you've seen in your life, what your perception is on certain things, and like just basically your surroundings. So for myself, I was born in Jamaica, but I came here at a young age, and I've been living in Brampton, the greater Toronto area, my whole life. So I've always been in a very diverse melting pot, right? So I have friends that are Filipino, Sri Lankan, Indian, you know, all over the world, England, British, like whatever you want to say, I have friends from there. But certain people, unfortunately, where they live is very, let's say, it's not as diverse. So these problems don't really affect them, and they don't really notice what's going on unless it's directly brought to them. So people will only be affected if people are always going to be comfortable until it directly affects them, right? So with the hiring, and you look in certain organizations, and you look at the top of head executives of many of these organizations, it's predominantly white males, right? Females are not there. People of color are not there. So when when hiring managers are going out and looking, the perception is that, you know what, you don't think it, and you're not thinking, and you don't want to do it, but a lot of the times people are looking at it and they're saying like, okay, well, this guy is probably better because he looks more like the people at the top, right? So your perception changes because of that. And I feel like, yeah, I want to see people be given a fair chance. And I don't want to see people be getting a job because they're black. I want to see people getting a job because they're black and qualified to do the job, right? So it's a really tough thing to manage. I think it's good, but I feel like it can also create a lot of problems from the other side. The white male might say that's not fair because whatever. But really and truly, there is a low amount of people who are given these opportunities. And you even see when Steve Nash was hired for the Brooklyn Nets, there was a big, I wouldn't say brawl, but on those television shows, they were talking about Steve Nash has no NBA coaching experience, but he got a job over all these black coaches that, you know, have been coaching for years. Yeah, it's difficult. Do I 100% agree with hiring people just because they're black or they're female? No, but I think it's a good that we are allowed to showcase these people and really look closer at what their qualities are, and hopefully they can take the right steps forward by doing a really good job and changing the perception of what a female can do and what a black male can do, or what you know what I'm saying, a South Asian male or female can do. So that's my perception on it.
Yeah. For the NFL, like, I mean, I think I touched on it before. I think they were almost in a way like the how I've been describing the NHL, is almost they didn't want to take a stance. They wanted to sort of appease what seemed like the majority of their fans were into, which is get that out of the game because it's not what I agree with. But now I think instead they've sort of switched that, and it's good to see that you know, they have putting these programs in place. And you know, just the other day they had an officiating crew that was all black. So it's cool to see stuff like that. even like a lot of the coaches now are coming in. There's a lot of women coaches and there's women referees and stuff, which is great. So it's good to see they're stepping in the right direction. But like Jordan said, I think it's a fine line they have to toe, because you don't want it to seem like you're just doing it because they're colored or because they're a woman or because they're whatever. They have to actually be qualified as well. And it has to, you almost want to get to this point where you don't have to put these programs in place. It's just the natural thing that happens. So
I was gonna add to that as well, just like seeing more diversity in like higher roles, like what we said with the recent NFL game. With I think that was last night, Tampa against the Rams, with the all black officiating crew. I think that was the first time in league history. And to Jordan's point, I think that was like really important that they're actually hired and qualified to be hired on the job instead of just because they're black. And it's more like uniting in individual race and a multicultural thing. And you see it in sports, not just like Americans or Canadians. You see different races in each team. And of course, like during live arena, you see it in the fans as well. Like growing up as a huge Raptors fans, I can tell it's a multicultural sport. It involves like other ethnicities, like Asians or people from Africa or Europe, and it just ties everyone together in a sporting event. I think we're seeing that a lot more right now than usual from before.
To everyone's point, even I agree this is a great thing what NFL has been doing or they're going to do. But first of all, majority and minority should not even exist, because it is all like no color should matter. The only thing should matter is the hard work or the abilities a person has, because hiring someone on the basis of their color or their caste or religion is not fair enough. Even if someone deserves it, they should definitely get it. I belong to a background where even coming to Canada, I came to Canada because I find it a place where we are respected, and like everyone wants respect and equality. So minority should not even exist. It should be like right to equality and freedom of speech for everyone.
So another big thing that came out of 2020 was the NFL and CFL changing their names. You know, you had Washington, Edmonton, I believe, as well, who are going to be changing their names. And I even know the Cleveland Indians in the MLB got rid of their logo and things like that. So what are your thoughts on these teams changing their names? And I guess, you know, with just everything going on, it's coming at a right time, I would think. But what's your opinion on that?
So for me, like I'm not Indigenous, but I don't really know much about their culture. The only thing I really know about it is what we were taught in elementary school. But I definitely, like, I hear them. I understand what they're going through, and I understand that, you know, people are making money off of their culture, if you want to say that, while also they've been oppressed. So I feel it's good for that these teams they're reading the room. You know what I'm saying? You can be wrong, no problem. But as long as you're saying, okay, we've been wrong for the past however many years, let's take steps forward to changing that. And yeah, that's like the best apology is changed behavior. So if you're gonna go out there and change your name and change your logo, yeah, it's tough. I understand, like the Washington football team, is that what they're called now? Like for now, like it's tough because how do you sell merchandise, right?
But there's nothing wrong with that though.
Washington football team?
Sorry to interrupt. Like let's look at like soccer teams, their football club, like that's what they're called. I don't think there's anything being wrong with being called the Washington football team.
I
anyways,
yeah. I come from a soccer background, so I like, you know, Arsenal FC. That's what they're called.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
It's just that you like the NFL. You've grown up to see like Tennessee Titans, Buffalo Bills, the Washington football team. Like, you know what I'm saying? It's off. It throws you off. And what's the plan with that? They're that's just for now, right?
It's a placeholder, but they might keep it. They don't know yet.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so yeah, like I said, best apologies change behavior, and if they're gonna take that step forward to showing like that they're with their indigenous people and say like, hey, like we know we were wrong. Let's work together to kind of change what the next generation looks like. We'll do that. That's the best they can do. So I'm not too sure about any of the other teams like the Indians and what their plan is. Would you consider the Blackhawks as well?
So, so like my thought on it is like obviously the Washington team name is a slur. That's ridiculous. Why would you?
Yeah.
Your name is a slur. It should not be there. And when you get to like Indians, the Blackhawks, stuff like that, in my opinion, it's like it's just weird. Like, why would you name your team a race of people or like a culture? Like, it's just a weird. Like, imagine if you were the Toronto South Asians. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why would you even do that? So on top of it being like sort of racist, it's also just weird. Like, and you like the Edmonton Eskimos. Like, you're just naming yourself a group of people. Like, it's so I don't know. But like Blackhawks, I don't know if it's offensive, and it could be. I'm not indigenous, right? But it could just be weird. I don't know.
It's tough though. Like I understand from a business perspective like why they don't want to change, because it's like Apple saying that they need to change their brand, right, or their logo. You know, like you've come so far and you've built so much reputation under this brand and it's globally known that now you have to change things. Like to me, it's not a big deal. Do it. I would do it if I was the owner and head execs, but I'm not, so I don't make that choice. But you know, I understand why a lot of teams, you know, they try to hold back as much as they can, because at the end of the day, I think like a lot of people just don't like change.
Yeah.
People do not like change at all, right? So you have to be mindful of what your fan base is and what how their mindset is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sad that people know that there are people out there that are racist, and in order to continue to make money, I gotta keep my brand the same way. You know what I'm saying? It sucks. It's terrible. But like I said, if I was the owner or head exec, I would change it in a heartbeat.
Yeah, for sure.
What do you guys think of like the Kansas City Chiefs?
It's another one. It's a tough situation. And I think honestly, I'm not the person to, like I said before, people are only affected. People are comfortable until they're affected, and because I do not know as much about that, about Indigenous people, I can't tell you how they're feeling about it, right? But if they were to come to me and say, hey, this is wrong, and this is how they feel about it, I would say, okay, well, it's the same way someone can say a racial slur to me and I feel bad about it, right? So now I sympathize with them because, you know, I've gone through similar situations. If that's how they feel about it, and someone comes to me and I'm the team owner, I have no problem changing. And I think that's how everyone should think, but I can't think for everyone, right? So
yeah, I think there was like a huge controversy too, like when they first changed, I believe, and there were like fans wearing the like their clothing and stuff, like the headdresses and stuff. So I just thought I personally don't think it's right, but you know, we can't do anything here. I mean, we can protest, but post on social media, but it's the executives that can really make that change. I mean, if I was there, but I would make that change, but I just don't think it's personally right.
So something that a lot of you guys touched on there is what you would do if you had the choices, but ultimately it's not up to us. It's up to these execs in these leagues and these teams. In your opinion, what are the next steps that these leagues and organizations should actually be taking to ensure that equality is there on all levels for everyone?
I think a big thing with sports is their community ties. And I feel like one of the big things is like I said, community ties. So reaching out to the community and making sure that, you know, if you're donating back to certain communities, or you're you know, just making sure that everyone in your community, no matter race, religion, gender, that they're all given an equal opportunity to succeed, right? No matter where you go, there's always going to be communities that have lower opportunity, lesser resources, whatever it may be. So I feel like a lot of leagues have been doing it, but I feel like in the next steps going forward, it's all about the next generation. Like Jordan said earlier, you're not going to change someone, make them a social activist with one conversation, right? And unfortunately, people are set in stone once you get to a certain age and how you're brought up and how you think. So luckily, a lot of the people that I've been around and around my age and you guys have similar, upbringing and similar mindsets. But I think that a big thing is that these organizations continue to show their support for all, and make sure that everyone kind of given an equal opportunity to succeed, whether it's in sports or as an athlete, as a fan, as a worker, whatever it may be. So
yeah, I think it's important for, like Jordan said, all these organizations, sports or otherwise, to stand with their people of color, and like when something happens, for them to make a quick decision about how they're going to handle it. Like if we go back to the Donald Stern situation, when when he had said the N-word and stuff like that, and they quickly got rid of him. So I think it's important for them to take that stand and to speak out against when things happen within their own organizations, to push those people out, and just show that, because they're gonna, like, all these organizations are gonna have fans that could be racist or whatever it is, and just show those fans that that's not right. Like, we're not gonna protect your racism and just hide and not take a stance. So I think it's important that they're all just continue to show their support, and if their players are speaking out about it, to stand with their players, and if something happens within their organization that is wrong, that they stand against it and deal with it in a timely manner.
I think one big thing that other leagues could do, how the NBA has like the NBPA, the NBA Players Association. I think that's one thing leagues could start looking into. I'm not sure if other leagues do that. Other than
some do, yeah.
They have that, because I think it's just like these players have their views, and sometimes they know what the right thing to do is. And I think like recently the NBA and the Player Association is like made up of a few players. They made a plan for a social justice and all that. So I think having that Player Association letting them make some decisions for this kind of stuff, it could be really important for those leagues. I think, I'm not sure if like Premier League has in England. Like, I think that could be huge, because you have like for example, the English media, they go off on these players, like after, if they have a bad game or whatever, and like Jordan mentioned earlier, like that Arsenal game, they just go off. So I think like having that player association and making that difference in those communities, and for all that, it could be a huge thing.
Yeah, I agree with the community ties as well. Just like role models coming out and speaking up. I think I agree with that. Like with the point that the younger generation is like should be our next targets. I think that's one of the important factors, because they build our future, and they're like, racism, I think, stems from the older generation as well. Like, you're seeing a lot of young kids right now with knowledge right now to just prevent racism from happening, and the power of technology and social media is really strong today, and it's just spreading the word much faster than how it would used to be. So I think it's a good chance and opportunity right now for all of us to just take advantage of what we have right now to share the message for social injustice.
I am a huge fan of cricket, so just having an example, sports, IPL brings all the nationalities together, and all the players play from like different cultures, communities, like countries. They play with one team. So in IPL, there is a player, he's dark skinned, and he supported the cause. He started supporting the cause Black Lives Matter. So, and it definitely gave a wave of this cause in India as well and other countries, because IPL is followed by a lot of countries, it's worldwide. So definitely sports is a background which brings everyone together, and if the leagues take proper action, they can definitely spread a positive message. Though we can't, as to Jordan's point, we can't change anybody, but definitely we can have make them feel that they are wrong by spreading a positive awareness, and that can definitely change an environment during the match. Like even there are racists in the match, that behavior change can definitely happen during that time, because positiveness can change that environment for sure.
Absolutely. All great points that you guys have brought up here. And so we're just going to come to one of our last questions here. And it's kind of touching upon what you brought up, Tony, just with social media being a platform for people to really use their voice and to show their support for, you know, these issues and people who are struggling with these issues. So my question to you guys is, in your opinion, what's the most effective way to promote change?
I don't think a singular thing is effective. So like that one black box thing, honestly, I don't really think that single thing really changed anything. But I think it's important to keep it mainstream. Keep it so it's something that when you're scrolling your feed, you see something about it every single day, right? And that's what's going to, if you keep it top of mind, and you keep it so it's like, wow, this is still going on. Like, are we gonna, like, let's do something about it. I think that's important. But then I think really the most important thing, and which is what the NBA was trying to push, is to get the right people in office. And it's not just the president. The president's one guy. He can do some things, but he can't do a lot of things. And especially if we're just talking about the States. So, you know, get the right people in office that are going to push the agenda for change. And that can be even in your own, even in Canada with the, you know, premier or, you know, mayor that you get elected or whatever it might be. That's what's going to change. So the social media is great for keeping things top of mind and keeping it mainstream, but at the end of the day, the only way you're going to change anything is if you push the people who are in power to make a change, and the way you do that is by getting the right people in power.
Yeah, I think for me, in terms of the black box, I think it was like hashtag Blackout Tuesday. I think it was good to just see everyone come together. Just seeing like all these people post about it. I think there was like a miscommunication in it though, where some people put like hashtag Black Lives Matter in that, and when you go on the hashtag page, like instead of all the posts about like what was going on, like it would just be the black boxes, so it's kind of blocking that out. So I think it kind of got messed up there, but I still think it was a good good message. And in terms of spreading the message on social media, I think those people create like the websites where you can donate and stuff. I think that's like a really good method. And like people putting in their bios and stuff, like I personally put it in my bio, and like having these influencers putting that in their bio and like reposting that, where people can learn about the history of this and what was going on right now, and links to where they can donate. I think that was a really good method. And back to Jordan's point, just getting the right person in office, and not just the not just the president, but you know, people that work under him and all that. So you know, you had, back to my points where arenas were making their were creating voting stations there, and you know, LeBron creating more than a vote and stuff. So I think just pushing that right vote is always important, and clearly that hopefully worked out for them and Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. But yeah, just my points there.
Yeah, I think for myself, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about with, do these athletes feel the need that they have to kind of come out and use their platform? It's everyone kind of using their platform and using their resources and who they know, and paying it forward in a way. So if I pass it on to two friends, they pass it on to two friends, they pass it on to two friends, it keeps growing, and people start to see what's going on with people of color, minorities, gender issues, religious issues. So I feel like, me personally, the way I look at it is it's your life, it's your story, right? So I'm not going to judge someone based on what they want to do and how they want to act and behave, because it doesn't affect me, right? So I'm not going to judge you based on your color or your race or your gender. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's just built up hate in your heart for no reason. And I think as we go on, we need to kind of just be mindful of it and critically think about how we treat one another, and how our biases. It's a human thing. Where the first thing we do when we see someone is we judge them. We judge everything that comes into our life and passes us, and everything we see. So we need to kind of be mindful of that, and think like, okay, let me not judge this person by a book or my past experience. Let me give this person a fair shot at showing me who they are and showing me their character. And you know, you might end up finding that this person who looks just like someone else who's done you completely wrong in the past could be your best friend, or it could be the smartest person ever, or whatever it may be. So just that's my thing, is every person is different, and deserves a fair shot at being treated fairly.
Social media is a platform which can influence a lot of people of different ages. So it is all about, everyone almost covered it, but social media can definitely influence a lot of people because they follow their role models. And if on through sports, we can definitely build up a positive change, like people following their role models and they spreading a lot of positive vibes. That can definitely happen and bring a change in our society. So that's for me, like social media can play a very big role in terms of making a bigger change.
Yeah, I was going to add to that as well, just like how looking at the experience from the NBA, like the timing of the Black Lives Matter event, it's really easy to just lose focus on what they were doing during that time, especially with COVID and playoffs and family all around the place. And it's just, we're all human. We all have emotions and everything. So it really plays a huge part in what we're doing right now, especially during the Black Lives Matter movement. And like, for example, like what I said before, like social media is like a really huge gift in our days right now. So a lot of people never had the privilege to use it before. So I think it's still the best route we can use to just share out the message and do it as often as possible.
Awesome. Okay, so that brings us to the end of today's episode. Thank you to Jordan, Jasween, Tony, and Vishwa, and Anne for being on this episode of the Rookies podcast. For anyone who is interested in an internship with Cosmos and the Beast, you can visit our website at cosmosports.com or bramptonbeast.com. You can also reach out to me directly at Sala@cosmosports.com or Michael Hunter at mbhunter@cosmosports.com. And then on the Beast side, you can reach out to Anthony Fusco at afusco@bramptonbeast.com. So that is it for today's episode. Thank you again to all of our guests for being on the podcast. Great getting to chat with you about these issues and just keeping the conversation going. And hopefully sometime in the near future, there will be a positive, big change for everyone. So thank you guys so much.